Namaskar. Namaskar, good evening, and a warm welcome to all. Thank you for joining us for the second webinar of the series as part of Zootopia 2021 Open Design Competition. The Central Zoo Authority, in collaboration with the Atal Innovation Mission Niti Aayog, launched Zootopia 2021 in an attempt to involve the young creative minds of our nation in developing an interpretation center for an Indian zoo. The series of webinar with subject matter experts that commenced on 29th April 2021 have been planned to spread the importance of zoo design and planning in the field of architecture, planning, design, and also communicate the need and importance of a holistic view and a multidisciplinary approach. Today's webinar is dedicated to understanding two closely linked concepts: the role zoo play in conservation and spreading awareness about species and habitats as a whole, and further understanding the ideas behind master planning of zoos and the critical elements of enclosure design, enrichment, etc. The fundamental philosophy here is to spread the conservation message more effectively, but in doing so, reinvent and enhance the overall zoo visitor experience. We have two very eminent speakers with us for the session today. Speaker one is Mr. P.C. Tyagi, who will speak about the fundamentals of zoo design, and Mr. B.P. Ravi, who will present a case study on Sri Chamarajendra Zoological Park, Mysuru, fondly known as Mysore Zoo. To start the session, I would like to invite Mr. P.C. Tyagi, former member of the Indian Forestry Service with over 35 years of experience working both in situ and ex situ conservation. He has been involved in managing tiger reserves and zoological parks and has amassed experience in management, planning, research projects related to animal welfare, conservation breeding, human-wildlife interactions, and scientific management of forests and protected areas. Mr. Tyagi has also worked as Senior Fellow with the Wildlife Institute of India. Over to you, sir.
Good evening to all. Good evening to you all. It is indeed a privilege to present you information on the fundamentals of zoo designing, master planning, and also enrichment in the zoos. Next slide, please. If you see that after the Central Zoo Authority was created, there has been a paradigm shift in the management of the zoo. A transformation has taken place as far as zoo management is concerned, and the CZA has been providing technical assistance to the zoo in improving the zoos. Zoos were first, the animals in zoos were kept in cages, in small cages, and there were a variety of species that were kept there. And then finally, from there, they moved on to keeping the animals in naturalistic environment, natural habitats created in the zoo, in the zoological parks. And here the emphasis was on habitat of animals. And then finally, they became integrated conservation centers with the breeding of animals for conservation breeding, the endangered species for conservation breeding, those whose numbers had dwindled in the wild, and they had to be bred and their stock had to be kept in off-exhibit area for reintroduction, and then making it as an education and learning center, and then conducting research as well as looking after the rescued animals. Because of the human-wildlife interactions, we had a lot of rescued animals coming in, and so the zoo had to perform that role as well. So these conservation centers were basically for the survival of the species. Next slide, please. In the Zoo Vision document, we are now thinking about modernization of the zoos in the two aspects that they are covering. One is having a iconic entrance for the zoos. If you see the top three zoos, I think they still retain this entrance where they have an entrance plaza in the ticket counter. And the second one is a zoo in Chennai, the Vandalur Zoo, where a lot of transformation has taken place as far as the iconic entrance and the entrance plaza facilities that has been created over there. In fact, the picture on the left, you will see that this is how it was conceived. That there will be a waterfall and lot of greenery, and it will be an eco-friendly zoo. And on the right, they had transformed it into a tiled zoo with lot of steel, and it's good for maintenance. But eventually, we have to think about having lot of greenery in a zoo and trying to make it as naturalistic as possible. Next. In fact, some of the eco-friendly zoos that we have in a country where we have a good entrance is the Tirupati Zoo, the photo that you see on the top left. And the rest of the zoos are basically small sections like the nocturnal animal house and the reptile house, the serpentarium and aviaries. For that also, this is the eco-friendly entrance where you only require earth, you require a lot of wooden poles, and you require a lot of greenery to be created. So these are the eco-friendly zoos that are coming up, and uh, our effort would be to create such kind of green zoos in our country. Next. This is the pinnacle of modernization of zoos in the Western countries, where they have these kinds of structures which are basically cement, mortar, and steel, and they have different modern themes. And in India, we have still not adopted this because this is far from the nationalists that our national zoo policy and the recognition of zoo rules talks about. So we are not for such a kind of modernization. And we would like to have immersion effect and environment which is natural, ecosystem based. Next. Now, starting with the master planning, actually, what is a master plan? In the sanctuaries and national parks, you have a management plan. In the tiger reserves, you have a tiger conservation plan. And in zoos, you have a master plan because it's a small area and all small details have to be worked and created actually. So this plan is a vision. It's a blueprint for growth, and it is for 10 to 2 years. And this growth has to be in a sustainable manner, and this is based on the theme that has been adopted by the zoo. This is most important, that you have to decide what is the theme that you want to have for your zoo. So based on that theme only, that you'll have to have a vision and you'll have to guide the development of the zoo. The first important thing is the layout of the zoo. And this layout is basically showing you the location of all the infrastructures in the zoo, from the lawns, the gardens, to your animal houses, and to your public utility areas, maintenance areas. So all that has to be shown in the layout of the zoo. Besides, you have to create a stimulating habitat which is based on the habitat of the animals, and this will only foster the physical and psychological need of the animals, because in the zoos you'll have to have physically, genetically and behaviorally healthy animals. And you have to improve the signage in the zoos. If you see the zoos all over India, they have to do a lot as far as signage and graphics is concerned. And then the zoo visitors insight into the nature. The zoo visit has to be enriched. So they should have a real insight into the nature, and you have to interpret nature to them. So that is most important. And several zoos which have been created in the 60s, 70s, and 80s, and even before that, there are the structures, the animal houses, enclosures that have been constructed are on the old design, which deviate from the animal welfare parameters that has been set by the CZA, and therefore some of them have to be demolished and new ones have to be created. So a lot of budgeting and funding has to go into the zoo for improvement. So the core value, finally, the master plan is going to focus on excellence, on innovation, on zoo ethics, and on collaboration. Next. Now, the goals of the plan would be to provide adequate space and services for the animals that have to be housed there. It has to have a cohesive circulation system, right, which is most important, how the people will navigate through the zoo, to the different sections of the zoo, to the different zoo geographic areas of the zoo. and it has to be a unique experience, a kind of a mystery for the visitors. You can't just have tiled and roads and everything in a manner which is an urban kind of a situation. It has to be, you have to give it some kind of a natural space that you have to create for the animals there. So it will give a unique experience to these visitors. And then it has to be as per the CZA norms that are there in the recognition of Zoo Rules 2009. And you have to provide an opportunity to incorporate some storyline. The zoos, each of the sections that you will have, whether it's the primate section, whether it is the aviary section, the exotic animal, the serpentarium, the nocturnal animal house, for all these sections, a storyline and based on the cultural theme of that area. You may be say in Mysore or in Tamil Nadu, so you will have to incorporate the cultural theme of that area from where the animal comes. So you will have to see that, and if you do this properly, if your exhibits are proper, the education message that will be received by the visitors, that will be just good, and then it will be a learning process for them. And you have to locate all the visitor facilities, because so many people are visiting the zoos. In the big zoos, over 30 lakh people are visiting, so you'll have to have that. Create revenues for the zoo, a naturalistic habitat, and then you have to separate the circulation for the visitors and the service roads through which all maintenance work has to be done into the zoo, through which all the provisioning has to be done. The education program you have to streamline, because that is one of the important part of the national zoo policy, which emphasizes on zoo as an education center, and it has to be physically and environmentally sustainable. Next. So this is, first of all, you have to do is the contour lines. Every zoo must have these kind of map or contour lines. Next. And after that, you have to, in the contour lines, you can then find out the elevations of the zoo, your topographic analysis. This will show which are the elevated areas, which are the depressions, low-lying areas of the zoo. And when you provide the circulation for the zoo, the primary, secondary, and tertiary roads in the zoo, the loop roads, which you call the tertiary ones, you will have to see that it has to be all around these elevated areas, and the animal enclosures have to be kept slightly elevated. They cannot be used, don't have to look down onto the enclosures. It has to be an elevated enclosure. Next. This is the layout plan for the Satarbad Zoo, and you have these color codes: black color for the existing enclosures, green color enclosures to be modified, and the red for enclosures to be redone, and the blue ones are the new enclosures. Next. This is the creation of the circulation path in the zoos, which shows basically the primary circulation path, the secondary and the tertiary circulation paths. The primary paths, depending on the carrying capacity of the zoos, have to be from 20 to 25 meters, depending on the space. The secondary have to be at least 10 to 15 meters, and the tertiary pathways could be even smaller, 4 to 5 meters also. Next. Now, for planning the zoo, you have to do a site analysis, a study, where you have to conceptualize the entire planning in the zoo, develop that program, do a feasibility report, a site analysis, draw schematic designs, and then have a preliminary layout, discuss it, go to the ground and do ground verification, and then after that, go to the various sites where you have to develop the different infrastructure for the zoo, have a look at the topography, the slope, the soil, the configuration, the hydrology, drainage, and the climate of that area, the aspect, the slope, how the sun is moving, where the shades will be there, which are the places where there will be more of sunlight, how you have to see that the animal gets shelter from rain, from the sun, and you'll have to see the land use in that area, the adjoining enclosures that are there, the public utility spaces that are there. So all these things you'll have to study before you prepare a site analysis report for the zoo. Next. You'll have to look at the land surface and land forms. Normally, it is good if the land surface is not flat. It should have mild slope and should be elevated area, some depressions and all that. So in a flat area, if you're creating a zoo, you'll have to then put a lot of earthwork to get the right elevation and then do the construction details. Next. The furniture that has to be there, where it is to be placed, especially for the visitor facilities that you have to create there, the shelters, the washrooms that you have to create, which area, food and beverage stalls that you have to put, the car parking, which is very important. The zoo must have enough space for car parking, otherwise it is very difficult, in case it's a large zoo and the people have to park their car outside, it becomes very difficult in India to get spaces for parking. So that itself hinders people to come to the zoo. So you have to be careful about this, and this is very important. Next. Then you have to think about water conservation, or how much water is available. In fact, zoo requires a lot of water, and it has to be potable water to be given to the animals. And then you have to recycle that water, and this grey water can be used for the lawns and other areas. And then you have to see that you conserve this water, which will come from the municipal water supply or from groundwater extraction, or it could be treated wastewater. Next. Similarly, sustainable waste management has to be done. Then animal information and signage. In fact, Dr. Charu had given us a lot of information while discussing the interpretation center. And you will see that on the left, this is one of the entrance where there are a lot of rocks being put there. This is a nocturnal animal houses in one of our zoos, the left top. And you will see that it lacks little bit of greenery. If you could have shrubs and herbs on all sides, it would look very good. Similarly, you have these signages which are there, the animal information boards and directional signages which have to be improved. The one on the right is very simple and small, hardly 2 or 3 lines, and also you can see that they are as they contains as little information as possible. Next. For the animal information board, in most of the zoos, they'll start from the distribution of the animal and then they'll come to the biology, ecology of the animal. People would just not read all that information. If they want, they can get it anywhere actually. So it is best that what is the unique feature of that animal, like the otter, its scent and marking is a unique feature. And so this is what that they have explained. Next. The interpretation center designing, I just want to say one line, I'm sharing only one slide. You have to plan it by seeing the profile of the visitor, do a visitor survey to find out, then select information, the style and media, and it has to be themed and storytelling. If you just put all this information into an interpretation center, having the best of the resources available to you, it could be an exit, it could be a diorama. So there are different styles that you can do, but it has to be a theme-based and storytelling with as little information put on those information boards that you will create there. Another important thing is that in this interpretation center, you have to link or you have to connect with the zoo animals and plants that you are keeping in the zoo, and also the biogeographic region in which the zoo is located. In that biogeographic region, the forests that are there with which people can connect very easily because they may have been there, and also the social and cultural aspects of that area. Maybe the tribals which are there staying in the forests, so that connect also has to be there. It could be an integrated center at one place, or it could be a mini center in every section. Now, what has happened is wherever we have integrated center, and if you do a survey, you will find out that people who come to the zoo, they want to see the animals. They are excited to see the animals, and they would not visit the interpretation center, though it is a very nice center, and that they will keep it for the end. But if you can put the interpretation center in a way that people have mandatorily to pass through and navigate through the interpretation center to enter the zoo, where you can also give them pre-visit orientation or information about zoo ethics, how they have to behave in the zoo. And this can be supported by a lot of technology that we have at now. Next. Revenue generation is basically your iconic entrance itself, it is an advertisement for you. In fact, for the Chennai Zoo where I work, a lot of people, we asked that why did you come to the zoo, and they said that they saw this entrance in some movie or in some advertisement, or when they passed through that road they could see it from far away, and they then thought that they must visit this place. If the entrance is so good, then definitely they will be having very good exhibits and enclosure. So entrance is very important, and it gives a good education opportunity if you have very good exhibits. And then you can create visitor hubs and give them all the amenities that are required. Parking is very important, food and beverages. From all this, you can get a lot of revenue. And if you see the revenue that is being generated out of zoo education program, or out of the parking and out of the food and beverages and the tariff that you have there, you can really sustain the zoo without much assistance from the central and state government. Next. Now, enclosure design has to be naturalistic. You have to recreate the same wilderness, same habitat in which that animal lives, that is inside the forest. And when you have these enclosures, three things are very important: the safe environment, the safety of the animals, the safety of the zoo staff and visitors, because it's a new thing that you are creating. The animals which are wide ranging in the forest have a territory in the forest, and suddenly you put them in an area which is say 200 square meters or 250, 500 square meters or 1,000 square meters, then it's a very small area, and the animals definitely will have a lot of stress. So you'll have to create an enclosure where you provide for all the physical, psychological and behavioral need of the animals. Next. So this is, animals have to kept at a higher viewing angle. Therefore, some of the zoos which have a flat enclosure, whether it is for deer or whether it is for Indian bison or for any other animal, it becomes difficult for the visitors to see that animal, and also it's not proper. So the recognition of zoo rules and all the zoo design philosophy says that the animals has to be at a higher elevation, and with this it commands respect. Next. Now, immersion exhibits are very important. This is how you have to plan the zoo. Landscape immersion. Just see the photograph on the right top, and you will see that this is an enclosure. So you will find that landscape, the entire zoo scape is not that only in the enclosure you have the trees and all that. You have the same thing in the public utility area. So it is basically merging the public utility area, and that area as well as the enclosure area has that same kind of environment. So this is the landscape immersion. It has to be a natural landscape. The visitors will share wilderness of animals just like you are in a forest. Barriers and holding areas are concealed. This is where in most of the zoos in India, we have to do a lot of work to implement techniques which are very simple techniques using just earth and a little bit of elevations, and you could then have the barrier and holding areas being concealed. Then controlled visitor circulation is very important. I talked earlier also. No cross viewing of animals. You have to have animal galleries, and the sight line design has to be there. Next. These are immersive designs of Indian zoos. So it's not that Indian zoos, we don't have very good immersive designs. There are several zoos who have done a lot of work on this, and this is really a good enclosure for the animals. Next. So immersion is basically immersing into nature. So that is what should be your focus when you design an enclosure. Here also the sight line design. When a person will stand from the animal viewing area, the animal has to be at a little elevated this thing. So the sight line has to go like that. If you have this sight line design thing being worked out properly, then all the barriers, the wet or the dry mode will not be seen by the visitors. They will be concealed and hidden. Next. You have the hidden barriers. You see this is a naturalistic water moat. As if you are inside the forest, this is the kind of small streams and other things that you find inside the forest. Animals are slightly elevated. Now, when you see the aspect and slope and the sunlight, how it moves during the day, you will have to create such areas where the animal during winters they can come out into the sun, and when it is hot, humid, they can go into the shady part and still be viewed by the visitors. And the back fencing had been hidden by planting. It is not there is no back fencing, but it has been done in such a manner that is hidden. Next. So this is continuous viewing where there is no withdrawal space for the animals, and then animals gets into stress. So you have to avoid this kind of viewing gallery. Next. 1/3 of the perimeter of the enclosure and less than 1/3 has to be used for animal viewing gallery, which should be spaced apart. And if you have these broken viewing points, then there will be enough withdrawal space for the animals, and the animals can be also easily seen when they move from one side to another side. Next. Now this is about cultural immersion, where in India we have very few enclosures which have integrated the cultural immersion into their enclosure design and concept. And in the lion enclosure created by the London Zoo, where we as in the WII, we were a partner with them, and we have helped them in designing that enclosure. They have created in the Gir National Park, they have created a scene where there's a railway station, and from the railway station you walk into the national park, the Gir National Park, and then whatever you see there, there are a lot of langurs over there. So they have a langur, and then with that langur integrated, they have also a lion enclosure. You should not keep primates so close to the lions, but they have separated it out in such a way. And similarly, they have all this thing. The station is there. The autos they have kept there, and people take the autos from there to visit the Gir National Park. Plus, inside the park, they have these field stations. They have the anti-poaching camps. So they have all depicted that, and people take a lot of time to see this, and it's a good learning process for them. Next. Another thing is the controlling people. It is in fact the new thing that is coming up, where you can be close to the animals, but at the same time you do not cause stress to the animals by having walked through aviaries and walk through enclosures. You can have a boardwalk, you can have a drive-through where you have a lion safari or a herbivore safari, and you can also have a skywalk. In some zoos in India, they have started the skywalk, though we do not encourage people to do that. But if there is a space where they can do it from a distance, we do not discourage them as well. Next. The components of enclosures are approach to the enclosure have to be immersion effect, in the sense it has to be a landscape immersion. Then barriers, signage, landscape, vegetation, furniture, enrichment, the day crawl, retiring cells. So these are the components of the enclosure. Next. These are off display, the vegetation, the furniture that you see, the logs which could be there, the rocks, pile upping of rocks which could be there, the trees which are there, all the furniture and the natural elements that are present in the wilderness has to be brought in here. The dry moat and the standoff barrier. Next. You can have different kind of fences, barred fences, chain link fences, wire mesh, glass viewing, piano wire. But in India, next, the most common thing that we see now that you have to design these barriers based on the animal, the landscape, and integrating the landscape and the barrier so that there is concealment of the barrier. You have to use the right material, and you have to see that the animals can be viewed easily, and there is protection for the animals as well. Next. These are some of the glass barrier. The left one is from one of our zoos, that is the Alipur Zoo, and the right one is from a foreign zoo. So these kinds of shelters, which earlier the CZA was not permitting, now they are doing that, and they are good animal viewing areas where there is a lot of people can view the animals without any hindrance. Next. Aviaries. Earlier, the aviaries that we were constructing is basically enclosing an area, total area, and then having a lot of trees and perches and water. That was the concept. But more important now is where people really enjoy it and enrich themselves by seeing these enclosures is the walk through aviaries, which could be a boardwalk elevated or could be on the ground, and then you have such viewing shelters. These pictures are from the Chatpir Zoo, where they have now a linear kind of a aviary, and they are adding section by section and having animal and plant associations, animal association, keeping different sections with different species of birds. Uh, uh, that is really very good. This is a new concept that is coming up, and it is very easy to maintain them as well. Next. Aviary diorama we have not created anywhere in India, but this is very easy and can be created. This is an animal viewing shelter. On one side there is a huge glass, and for the birds you don't need very thick glass as such, except that the birds would come very close to the glass, so there are mechanisms to prevent birds from injuring themselves. And these are good aviary dioramas that we can create. Next. Usage of vegetation enclosure is very important. It's for foraging, for shade, for aesthetics, and also microfaunal growth for the animals where they can feed on small insects and other things that are there. Next. Arboreal pathways in red pandas that they have created, to have all the natural elements that are required for the psychological and physical well-being of the pandas. Next. Water pools has to be created in a manner that they are natural. White cement need not be used. It has to be a gradual slope. In fact, one slide I have shown you where there was a natural water pool that they have created. So most of our zoos, they have a saucer-shaped water pool and with white cement, and it's of a regular shape. So they should make it as irregular as possible and place it in a manner at a slope where people can see the animal also when it is in the water pool or bathing in the water pool. Next. Species appropriate, natural substrate, no risk to animal, easy to maintain. Next. The retiring cells are very, very important. You will see that in the evening, 5:30 to 6, we will bring the animal into the retiring cell, give it the food, and wash that animal. The doctors may come and wash that animal. It will be basically a health screening to see the animal is okay, and also see how much feed it is taking. So you can find out which animal is not eating properly, which is offbeat. And then next, this is the uh, this is the crawl, which you can see right next to the night shelter or the feeding cell of the animals. You will see that the height of these shelters are much more than what is prescribed by CZA. And you will find that in enclosures of say 3x3, 3x4, the animals have to spend the entire night till it is again sent into the enclosure, into the paddock. So it is very, very much necessary. And now CZA has made it almost mandatory. Then you must have crawls, which are basically covered spaces where the animals can be left in the night so that it can move around. It can see all the green branches and the trees which are around, so its view is good. It feels okay. It can hear the sound of other animals rather than being inside the cell. And second thing is the aeration, the light, this thing, all that is available in these crawls. So these are very important features that we should have in the animal enclosures. Next. So these are the day crawls, and you can have a night crawl as well as a day crawl. Next. Next, we go to the environmental enrichment. So these animals which have been brought from their natural habitats into these artificially created habitats, now these animals get bored very easily, being staying in a small space which they know they have explored, found out the entire thing. So they have nothing new, nothing novel. So you have to provide some kind of stimuli so that species specific expressions and appropriate behavioral and activities that they can do. So these are the same activities which they do in the wilderness. So this stimulating environment you have to create, and this is environmental enrichment. It increases the behavioral diversity, reduces frequency of abnormal, increases range or number of normal behavioral pattern, increase the positive utilization of the environment. Next. So the different enrichments are the feeding one, where you provide scattered food, hidden food, whole life food, puzzle feeders. Next is the tactile, which is novel objects, bags, balls, other toys of local material. Then manipulanda is basically structural features that you provide as is found in the natural habitat. It could be artificial, but it appears natural. You can have enclosure, rotation, change in vegetation, shelter, hiding places, climbing structures, elevated perches, water source, loose substrate for digging. All these can be then auditory. You could have animal vocalization, sounds being made, olfactory. You could have some scents and perfumes and odors being used so that to stimulate that animal once in a while. Visual, you could have mirrors, especially for the primates. Television is not recommended, and reflectors, yes, you could definitely have that, so that once in a while animal is able to have some kind of stimulation. Social is basically important, is we must have a social group of animals, and this is the group, normally average group that you find in the wild. You must try to keep that same group. If it's not a social group, if it's a primate and you're just keeping a pair, I'm sure that they get bored so quickly. So you have to see that you have a social group, and where there is human animal interaction is important, but you should not habituate that animal. It has to be an organized interaction for the welfare of the animal and uh, protection of the keeper. Next. So natural normal behavior is where animal feeds, forages, it moves around, it explores the habitat. So this is a natural behavior. But you find in most of the zoos stereotypic behavior, which is animal may self-bite, it may do tongue flicking, it may start sucking at some objects, it may regurgitate food, it may pace around, pacing from one side to another side, repetitive movement of the head, body, limb. This we have found in elephants, just rolling their trunk, lifting their legs. We found it in the bears, very common. So we found it in tigers also, as bear pacing from one end to other end and just not bothered about anything else. Next. So for these animals, we have to provide enrichment, and this could be done, say, in the case of primates. This was an experiment and a research project done by the WII few years back. And here we brought natural things so that we could have increased foraging time for animal, increased social interaction, also enhancing the cognitive capabilities, and also manipulable and feeding enrichments were used. And we found that animal which was normally bored and would sit on one branch of the tree for 1 hour, 2 hours, suddenly started becoming very active. So, and you have to keep changing it, and you have to use local materials like bamboos. You can use coconut. There are so many things that can be used. These baskets which have been tied are not required as such, but this is an experiment that we did. So we have this basket. They are not looking very natural, but definitely you can have some kind of a basket made of the natural vines and natural this thing which could be set up. Next. In the leopard also we did this. We found that there was limited functionality of paddock area. The leopard was moving, staying in one area only, not using the entire paddock area. There was public access unlimited from all sides. People were viewing this animal, and the retiring cell were also not proper. So cognitive enrichment was necessary, and we did a complexity scoring. This is the first time this enclosure complexity scoring format was developed, and with that we did the scoring for this leopard. Next. After providing all these enrichments, manipulanda, sensory, contra freeloading is food for work. So he has to make an effort to get food. After doing this, we found that there was dramatic behavioral changes in the repertoire of the animal. Next. Dole also, we found similar thing, stereotype behavior, unlimited public access, social grouping, and with enrichment, things improved. Next. For the elephants, we found in that enclosure there was no tree at all, because all the trees were knocked off by that animal, so did not protect the tree as such. So we did this experiment where we provided shade, a kind of a shamiana, and found that animal was under that shade for a long period, and they were not doing anything to the small poles that we had put. We tried feeding experiments, feeding the animal from elevated places rather than putting all the forage onto the ground, and animal was hardly lifting its trunk, and some manipulable enrichment, and we saw the animal was playing around. We put more than 20-30 logs, and we were really seeing that the animal are moving the logs from one end to other end. So because of that, we found that all the stereotype behavior that the animals were having, they diminished. Next. Similarly, for the bears also, we did the similar thing, putting honey into crevices and having all kinds of feeding provisioning for these animals, putting an ice block at one point, burying it into the ground. The animal would sit there during the summer, and people could see that animal. And there are a lot of metals and other things that were used for for raising trees and seedlings inside the zoo. We asked them to remove that, and there could be definitely a uh, 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 better things that can be done rather than having such metals inside. Next. So that is all with my presentation. Thank you very much. If there are any questions, I'll take it at the end or whenever people would like to ask.
Sir, we'll take questions at the end.
Okay, fine.
Thank you very much for your presentation. It was very, very informative, and it will definitely be of value. The presentation will give everyone an insight into the fundamentals of design, especially related to making the experience a nature immersive one. Thank you very much, sir. I will now invite our second speaker for the evening, Mr. B.P. Ravi. Mr. Ravi is the Additional Principal Chief Conservator of Forest and Member Secretary of the Zoo Authority of Karnataka. He's an Indian Forestry Service officer with more than 29 years of field experience. In the course of his career, he has worked closely with management of protected areas and alongside forest-dependent communities and farmers in the Western Ghats. He has had a long and illustrious career working in the zoo ecosystem and has initiated and executed many novel ideas and programs. With his guidance, the zoos in Karnataka state have been able to network, share information, expertise, and manage animal collections. Over to you, sir, to speak about the contributions of Mysore Zoo to nature conservation. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Sir, it has been very nice to hear you. Very exhaustive and very informative presentation, sir. Thanks, you made my job very easy, sir. Let me share my presentation. First of all, I speak from the perspective of a common man, not as an expert, not as a member secretary, not as a forest officer and a wildlife. How do a man on the street understand the concept of zoo? And if at all he wants to visit, why you would like to visit the zoo? And what should be made to attract the more and more visitors, thereby to get the resources to take care of the needs of the management. And this is the entrance of this Mysore Zoo, and it is a contribution of one small boy. His name was also Ravi, who was a small boy, and his house is just located in front of this our Mysore Zoo. He is a very leading architect in the Mysore, and perhaps he visited many of the zoos internationally. One fine day in the afternoon, he just stopped in my office, and he introduced himself, and he said that, "Sir, there is something wrong with your entrance. So all the people that would like to visit your zoo, most of the time actually they have to stand outside, and there's a lot of scorching sun, and a lot of vehicle movement is obstructed, and they don't have an ambience or an atmosphere where they can feel that yes, we should we should come back here." And I said, "Okay, Mr. Ravi, what can we do?" He said, "You please give me a freedom. I will turn over your zoo, the entrance." That is how actually this Mysore Zoo entrance has been transformed. So zoo manager must be open to the ideas. It is in a very complex establishment. Zoo there are veterinaries, there are engineers, there are architects, there are forest officers, there are wildlife, there are scientists. So, but if you come back to this, actually, the definition of the zoo is an establishment, a stationary or mobile, where captive animals are kept for exhibition. Of course, this definition, all of us to understand. Why I put this actually a definition of the zoo here? Recently, a small-time politician visited one of our zoo, and this is a very difficult times, COVID times. We're all facing a lot of difficulties in getting the resources. So in one of our zoos like Shumaga Zoo, so inspection was going on. The local member of parliament was also there, and my director was also there. And at that time, this particular politician, who is a director of one of the organizations, he said that ask the MP, who happens to be the son of a chief minister. So this is very unfair. Your government is doing to the Jews. He said why? Say there is no difference between your Jews and the circus. See, you are asking your directors to earn their own money, and your directors are earn the revenues to take care of your animals also. Then what is the difference between you or Jew and the circus? Incidentally, the definition is also like that. And these are the policy and guidelines to be followed by the Jews. There's a national Jew policy is there, Wildlife Action Plan, Wildlife Protection Act, recognition of the Jew rules, CITES, and guidelines for the management of the Jews. These are actually the one actually we can prescribe so many rules, regulations. But there is one fundamental difference. As per our national conservation strategy, there are broadly the one is in situ conservation and ex situ conservation. Yeah, and wildlife sanctuary, national park, conservation areas, bird sanctuaries, water bodies, biospheres. Here, the role of a forest managers are the wardens in charge of those conservation areas is basically to arrest the anthropogenic pressure on the natural areas or natural forest ecosystems. Because of this developmental activities, which is anthropogenic nature, there is an anthropogenic pressure on our natural forest ecosystem. There actually the people, the foresters, the forest managers, they address or arrest or prevent the pressures on the natural ecosystem. But where in case of zoos and ex situ conservations, here the role of a forest manager or a person involved in the zoos is entirely different. It's more of a behavior. It's not only the wild animals, not only the wild plants, we have to deal with the visitors in the zoos. And the objective of the zoo is to complement and strengthen the national effort in the conservation of the biodiversity of the country, particularly the fauna through the ex situ conservation. And zoos provide us an active linkages between in situ and ex situ conservation. They provide inputs to the rescue and relief operations. And the wildlife protection act prescribes that management of the zoo should be having uniform rules, regulations throughout the country. And the amendment was brought to the Wildlife Act. Section 83 prescribes the recognition of the zoo rules, and the zoo rules 2018 are very exhaustive. But actually, the rules how the zoos protect against the species going against. Good number of species exist only in the captivity. Wild populations have been boosted by captive bred animals. Of course, there are some successful stories of reintroductions of the animals. So, if you consider the zoo footfalls, there is a growing awareness for the nature and wildlife conservation. That actually helped the zoos become a popular institutions nowadays. Estimates indicate about 10% of the world population visit zoos every year. There are about 350 animal collections in India right now, if I am right, and about 50 million people visit zoos before COVID. Now, of course, before COVID, the pre-COVID period, we used to attract about 5.5 million visitors, zoos animals. And the conservation education is very important. And zoos work for the conservation of wildlife and its habitat, adopt sustainable lifestyles. They can convey this adopt sustainable lifestyles and live in harmony with the nature. introduce the concept of reuse, recycling, and refusal, inspire amongst the Jew visitors empathy towards wild animal, create an awareness about conservation of natural resources, maintaining the ecological balance, and each Jew should have a well-drawn up plan for educating the visitors, and audio video shows for effective communication conservations. Now let us see this actually how this Mysore Zoo is grown up as a socio-cultural institution, and it is an historical town. Mysore is an heritage city. This is one of the oldest zoo in our country. It was established in 1892 by the then Maharaja Sri Chamarajendra Wadiyar. It has been interacting with the foreign Jews even before the CJD Central Zoo Authority came into existence. We have a rich collection of the native and exotic species. In the past, we have gorillas. We are going to get gorilla also soon with the active cooperation and help of the Central Zoo Authority. All these animal collections are there in our uh, Mysore Zoo. The Zoo Authority of Karnataka is a registered society. Under this society, we have 9 zoos. Out of those 9 zoos, this Mysore and Bannerghatta, there are 2 large zoos. And we accept donations, retain revenue for its maintenance and development. We don't give our revenue to the state exchequer, so it is recycled here in our zoos. This is a past zoo to start the animal adoption program, the Mysore Zoo, and a strong support of the public. Last year, we raised only about 7.5 crores from our 7.5 crores donation out of the 14.5 crores. Our gate revenue is about only 7 crores, remaining 7.5 crores. It is the people that who have donated. And look at the visitors, number of these visitors. We have more than 3 million during the 1819, 1920. Of course, post-COVID, after COVID, the number of people, visitors have come down drastically to the 8.5 lakhs. Our revenue also come down to 14.58 crores. We achieved almost self-sustenance financially. The 16, 17, 17, 18, 18, 19, 19, 20, in all these years are actually our revenue is surplus compared to the expenditure. And after a decade or so, that first time the our expenditure is more than our revenue, that is 22, 21. And the Mysore Zoo, we in the Jews, actually from the perspective of a common man, one is uh, why the Jews should be there. Somebody is there, an establishment for an exhibition of the captive animals. The definition is there. People do visit. If you take the cross section of the society of the people from 5 to 12 years, 12 to 18 years, 18 to 30 years, and of course the adults. So we are Jews are attracting the different cross sections and different age the people. The children do come to the Jew just for the sake of a curiosity, and informed people come for the Jew for education and a value addition or value inputs. The older parents they come to start up in recreations. So Jews must need to the cater to the needs of all the cross section of the people. When I become the Jew director, without understanding the concept of the Jew management and the rules, ideally I understood that what is Jew actually. Jew consists of only basically 3 elements. One is wild animals, of course, they are captive and captive condition. Second is plants. Third is visitors. The Jew director job is essentially to take care of this actually these 3 components. You have to take care of the plants, you have to take care of this wild animal, you have to take care of this actually the visitors. How to make their actually how to make these conditions comfortable to these 3 basic components. Because when a visitor comes to the zoo, definitely time is a factor. When you speak about the fundamentals of the zoo design and the management, You must consider actually the visitors, because the visitors are the one actually they sustain the zoos in the Indian context. No, you can't have a zoo. It's a very large zoo. There actually your visitor path, if it is more than the 2 kilometers or 3 kilometers, 3.5 kilometer, it's difficult. On an average, somewhere the visitor would like to spend about 2 to 3 hours or 4 hours in a zoo. Possibly of a day, and very rarely in a one day in a zoo. When this being the case, now your visitor's path must be somewhere between 2.5 to 3 kilometers only. And that is the basic actually idea in all our remaining zoos. We don't want to actually have a large visitors path, many number of enclosures. Therefore, the people would get exhausted. No, it is not a good idea to have too many number of enclosures. The visitor pass must be somewhere between 2 to 3 kilometers only, with good number of trees to provide a shade. Coming to the Mysore Zoo, the people often complain that actually this Mysore Zoo is only getting a lot of people, basically because Mysore Palace is there and it is strategically located, and the intersection of these three states, Tamil Nadu, Kerala, a lot of people do come from Tamil Nadu and Kerala before COVID days, and a lot of visitors from North India also do visit to see the palaces. That is one of the regions where actually whenever you want to construct the zoos, you must consider couple of the factors. One is you should have a land, you should have water, you should have a good access, should have good topography, and that place must be having some historical significance or a cultural significance. For example, if you have a zoo somewhere in the places like where none of these are there, for example, Mysore Zoo is attracting the people just because of this actually strategic location. Otherwise, the Bannerghatta Zoo is essentially ideal because a lot of population is there. In case of Bangalore, about 12 million population is there. Even during the COVID days, COVID period, that has earned about 15 crores revenue because it has a captive population. These factors also must be considered whenever you are going to set up a new zoos. And often people complain that Mysore Zoo is earning revenue and has not contributed anything towards the conservation. This is being a sort of a very awkward question. But we have set up in a one rescue center, dedicated rescue center, thanks to the central zoo authorities approval in the master plan, about 113 acres with a tank of about 30-40 acres. We have spent about 23 crores, about 230 million rupees on this conservation center during the last year. It is just because of these people visited our zoos in a good number. This is how the common man can be a part of the conservation, where we set up a dedicated holding houses for a tiger, leopards, even for our elephants, and we have a quarantine center. And also we set up in a one Zoo Authority of Karnataka service office. You can see this in lower corner. This is the new office which has come up, and in this office actually now our Zoo Authority of Karnataka is functioning. We have spent about 23 crores is exclusive the money of a common visitor who visited this Mysore Zoo, and we established even this veterinary facilities there in this conservation center. In the days to come, especially in India, because of this developmental pressures, the wildlife man-animal conflict is going to increase. The first thing that actually we did in Karnataka, in all other seven zoos, is we wanted to strengthen this rescue and relief operation. Because when I was a director of this Mysore Zoo, somewhere in the 2011 in Tulu, every other day we used to request from Ballari, the Belgaum, Davangere, Chitradurga, all these areas, especially the central Karnataka, where a lot of mining, the iron ore mining, the quarries are there. Lot of leopard conflict, lot of this sloth bear conflict. Even very second week, the people actually used to request to depute a doctor, a vet, along with the tranquilizing accessories, medicines to capture a sloth bear or a leopard. Then we say that actually how to strengthen this actually these seven zoos. First, we say that we started hiring a veterinary doctors on a local basis by giving an honorarium to these local people. We caught hold of all the veterinary officers who are stationed in these headquarters near the headquarters of this seven zoo. We requested them to come over to this Mysore zoo. We trained them. maybe for a week in how to handle these guns, drugs, uh, and we given a training for 1 week. And also we started supplying these drugs and guns. We purchased the guns. Thereby, the need of actually deputing my veterinarian from Mysore and Bannerghatta has come down. Now, in all these 7 zoos, we have uh, going to set up an hospitals. Hospital already set up there in Belgaum Zoo and Chitradurga Zoo, the Gadag Zoo and Ampi Zoo. So we have about 6 or 7 hospitals with the veterinarians. They are appointed on deputation from the veterinary department. So my appeal to all other zoo authorities is there: you must increase your rescue relief operations and train your manpower and provide them actually the required equipments. And another the zoo management aspect is that he recycling this actually the waste, the biogas, the vermicompost, and the plastic we started recycling. It was in the year 2011 or 2013. It was a month of April and May. We used to collect lot of this plastic bags like here, and we kept about 6 to 7 persons there to just to pick up the bottles. Then we introduced the concept actually putting a rupees 10 rupees tag on this bottle, and those who would like to get this money back must deposit at the counter. Thereby, actually, we started earning a sort of revenue out of these plastic bags. And afterwards, I realized in all other zoos, what must be done? That the people that who visit the zoos expect that they don't understand the concept of your conservation values, ethics, and everything. They want your places to be must be clean and must be green. Clean, green, tidy zoos attracts your visitors. And the most important is your toilets must be very clean and tidy. If you attend these 3 or 4 things, people don't complain. This is what I do understand. And so, as a matter of fact, as we make it a policy that we say that extensive planting in all our zoos took place in all across Karnataka, and the plastic bottles started collected, and we kept our zoos clean, and we kept our toilets clean. These couple of things are actually started, the people appreciating, zoos are clean, kept, and also we insisted if there are any smokers in my zoos, we see to that actually they should not smoke inside the zoo, even though we advise not to smoke outside also, but we can farm. Then this vermicompost, actually recycling, this was introduced in the Mysore Zoo. Whatever the good aspects of this zoos are there, we try to replicate across the zoos in Karnataka. And most importantly, as Tyagi Saab said, water is most important in our context, especially in the Indian context. So, for an architect or an engineer, we would appeal that you must harvest the natural advantages. So, one is we must actually the working with the nature is actually is harvesting the natural advantages. For example, in the Mysore Zoo, our Karanji tank is located at upstream, and whenever this it rain so heavy rains, all this water used to be collected and just allowed through this Maidu, the natural drain, and during the sometimes it is flooded. Now one engineer, local engineer from professor came there, Mr. Ravi, that I will plan for your job. Why I am keep telling about this, how that actually Jews can utilize the local resource person and the intellectual persons or capable persons who can modify your Jew context itself. Then we started harvesting this water rights, and we are self-sufficient afterwards. And this attracted me everyone. A small this how actually that most of the times actually we miss the uh, woods for trees. And this is the drain already it's constructed when I become the director. And the people said, and my that professor took me to this spot. Mr. Ravi, this is an engineering construction. You are saying you are a forester. Would you listen to me that actually I modify your channel because you were constructed about only 100 meter. And afterwards you say that, yes, sir, please tell me, the professor. They say that, okay, Mr. Ravi, you let us modify your channel into this line. This is a simple concept. For example, go back. This costed me 100 rupees. This water channel. This channel costed just about 35 or 45 rupees. The natural stones, natural ambience, all those canna and everything, they have a lot of oxidating bacteria in their root zones, and then natural water flow. And with less money, we have this more better ambience in our zoo, in the midst of the zoos. This is a natural drain. He has transformed. And also, what we did actually, our natural lot of modes are already. Ours is in a very historical zoo. Old modes are there. We made this water to run all along our modes. Thereby, actually, water recharge was very good. And 2014 onwards, we never faced any water constraint in our Mysore zoo, even during the deficit rainfall. And not only our zoo, all our surroundings, there are about 33 or 34 restaurants are there, hotels are there, maximum number of hotels, density wise, it is in the Mysore city, they are all depending upon this water. So this is how, why I have say this again, these 2 points is there. In the society, a lot of goodwill is there, a lot of good wisdom is there, you must listen to them. It's not that just because we are an authorities, we decide and everything. And the people are definitely ready to help us if we just open to their ideas. This is what another. And we have a number of education programs like Youth Club is there. This is very specially designed for the children between the 12 to 18 years. Why you can say this 12 to 18 years? Here, at that time, actually, the children are brimming with lot of good ideas. We can actually mold their ideas into a good actions. These people have a lot of energy and very impressionable ways. And about 50 to 60% actually we invite. We conduct every Sunday about for 25 weeks. We invite the resource persons of various fields and provide a platform for the young people to interact with this. And these resource persons do come and interact with the people, and these interactions be carried out in the in the local print media and the electronic media. Thereby, this idea of conservation is slowly percolating down to the. And we have a summer clubs on World Environment Day, do in beach program. The people do come there. The government school children they come on Tuesdays when Jews is closed, and our education officer will take them around and introducing the concept of the this greener concept and do outreach program where our education officer, biologists, do directors visit the nearby government schools or colleges, go there and interact, and literary competition, wildlife week celebrations, botany and zoology clubs. And here this is actually in a the open door auditorium, which is based upon a Singapore model. I happened to visit the Singapore Zoo, and when I talk about this about constructing open air auditorium, the same architect actually who helped us to redesign our entrance plaza, then he came over and he helped me to design this actually this open air auditorium where actually we do conduct, and it is very helpful during the COVID times. We can keep a social distance and more thing. And this is also exclusively done out of this visitors entrance fee. We conduct a training program for all our guards, forest, range forest officers throughout the year whenever they visit our zoo. And cleanliness is most important. So I happen to visit actually see once Denver Zoo, the Singapore Zoo, and whenever I've been abroad, maybe 4 or 5 times, most of the people that who visited, I interacted with these Indians. I said, "What is that actually which attracted you to the foreign?" No, they said that is very clean, kept clean. No, I think this is very important in all our zoos. So Mysore Zoo is known for cleanliness and a lot of green cover because of this water circulations and the systematic layout. And if you maintain this couple of these, people do come there and appreciate your institution and everything. It shows your actually the management effectiveness. And this is a thematic map approved by the Central Zoo Authority. Of course, in the zoo design and management, you can adopt on an ecosystem basis or on a taxonomic basis. But here, I differ with the experts, and maybe that when you prescribe the Central Zoo Authority uh, with respect to this, actually the holding cells, the paddock area, diamonds and everything, the idea of this theme must be left to this local authorities, and too much of actually rigidity and the part of this central organizations don't give an opportunity to have a local creative ideas. And because if you want to develop institutions and organizations for a country like India, and there must be a lot of freedom to the state to authorities. This is my personal view. And because one incident I must share, actually, who happens to be, I don't want to name that, who happens to be the member secretary of the Central Zoo Authority, he visited our zoo. I was a zoo director. My chairman was there. He is a political appointee. He visited the Mysore Zoo and visited this tiger house. This tiger house was built, the first one was built by actually by the Maharajas. So as per this latest guidelines of this Central Zoo Authority, also the dimension wise actually they are bigger, but somehow the member who visited this actually is a part of this evaluation committee said that it must be demolished. I just got astonished, and my chairman took over me, then said that whether you approve my plan or not, we are not going to demolish it. I just asked afterwards, why, sir, it should be demolished? No, 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 you are allowing the people from 360 degree, this one. So if that is the case, you please tell me that we will not allow, you allow only from the moat area. That issue is there. Why do you want to demolish this this majestic structure which was built because it's considered as the heritage building? And because a lot of sentiment is there in case of the old Jews, the people actually have grown up with these institutions, a lot of good fond memories, and it creates a lot of unnecessary, unwarranted ill will with the local population, because any institutions recognized in any major cities actually have a long histories, and local people have a lot of affection and love towards the Jews that must be sustained forever. And Mysore Zoo has a lot of this nose production of this mealworm, superworm, rabbits, poultry, rats, and Mysore powder. And this is actually known. And latest during COVID year, we started all across, even in Banerghatta and in Shumaga, even in Gadag. I would be very happy. I must say that I share that my director saved me about 5 crores out of this actually a green powder. All the vacant space, wherever it is there, all the electric lines, they started growing the fodder. This is how actually the juice can be a sort of sustainable in their own.
Sir, sorry to interrupt. We're running out of time. We don't want to lose out on the presentation. So if you could run through your slides, please. Thank you.
Okay. And now Conservation Breeding Center, it's there. Actually, we have a wild dog, LTM, Indian Grey, and Indian Gar. All these facilities are common, but in the Kurkali Rescue Center. And already animals are also shifted there. Wolf and the wild dogs, they are breeding well. And these are the 3 animals. For them, we have to construct these new enclosures in the Conservation Breeding Center. This was pre-COVID days. I don't know what is there store. Maybe it takes maybe 3-4 years for all of us to attract this type of number of people. And the very difficult times, in these difficult times, I want Central Zoo authorities already that they made an effort. Actually, this Forest Advisory Committee, they recommended that zoo must be considered as a forestry activity. And if that is the case, actually, Kampa should come. Kampa funds should help actually all the zoos across the state. Otherwise, those are very difficult times. Most importantly, the visitor facility is also important. Take care of this our wild animals, the health facilities. Visitors also far most important, and all these facilities have been in place in Mysore Zoo. Similarly, that these places that in other areas also we are going to replicate these things, and we are managing the urban lakes also. A couple of the urban lakes have been handed over to the Mysore Zoo because we are managing very well this Karanji Lake. And this is actually a Kurgaldi Hospital and Office Block of Zoo Authority of Karnataka. And this is an entrance plaza of the MP Atal Bihari Vajpayee Zoological Park. And here we are getting a money from the district mineral fund, which is about 7 crores building, and it is all local infra content. It is going to reflect the local historical importance on the styles of this Vijayanagara Empire. Only the Central Plaza is being planned and it is being executed with the help of the district mineral fund. And this is an hospital. It has been established at the MP Zoo already. And we have a veterinarian. And another, this is actually the naturalistic enclosure of this Chitradurga Zoo. So that is what tag is supplied. We use the local material, local landscape, and we have actually a holding house. Nobody can see this holding house of a sloth bear because this zoo design, we have taken the input from the actually rather than Central Zoo Authority member secretary. He visited and they said, DN Saab, Mr. Ravi, you must have this actually your sloth bear exhibit here only. They said, okay, sir, and we shared this photograph with him also once this exhibit has come up. And this is really naturalistic. Holding horse is not seen somewhere from there. This is a viewing point. And with these few words, I will conclude my presentation. I say that management of zoo in the years to come there is going to be very, very difficult because of the lack of resources, lack of visitors, and therefore we must get the resources from the central government, especially under the Kampa. And I wish, I I suggest and request the central zoo authority to take up this issue on behalf of all the Jews across the state. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir. It was a wonderful presentation, and thank you for taking us through the journey of Mysore Zoo and introducing us to all the programs and activities that you have been conducting there. I'm now going to open the platform for any questions. Tyagi sir, the first question would be to you. Sir?
Yes, I can hear you, please.
Okay, the question is, in your view, what is the best plan for a 21st century education center, especially in terms of active interpretation programs?
That's very difficult to answer it in just 1 or 2 lines or 1 or 2 minutes because there are so many aspects for an educational and interpretation center. What we must see that zoos, we are having different sections of societies coming. There could be people from schools, from colleges, having different level of educations, and we have to first do a survey to find out who are the profile of the visitors, and then plan your activities accordingly. We could have so many activities for them for different sections of this thing. For the corporate people, we can have some other kind of activities based on their levels of knowledge. So we could have a zoo school programs having a set kind of a menu for them, and the schools can then, you can put it on your websites, and the schools can then subscribe to it, and then you can get revenue as well. So we have a zoo school in Vandlu, Chennai. Mysore has a similar kind of a this thing. Schools, they do their booking, and we offer them all our services. We have educational officers to do that. So that is how it is, and we do have interpretation center as well. So these school children can be taken to those interpretation centers, and nature can be interpreted to them.
Thank you very much, sir. Mr. Ravi, the next question is for you. With the Zoo Authority of Karnataka, where do you see the zoos in Karnataka in the next 10 years?
This is a very difficult question. Had the COVID not been there, definitely would have matched the San Diego.
Oh, lovely.
Especially at least Mysore and this Bangalore would have matched the San Diego because we
Right.
are open to the ideas. As a member secretary of Zoo Authority, my job is to arrange the resources. Once we arrange the resources, we get actually a lot of expertise like from you, and we have invited you number of times to our zoos to actually to help us to moderate our some of these zoo exhibits, to design our exhibits. But what we did actually earlier in Zoo Authority, revenue was there only stuck up in the Mysore Zoo and Bannerghatta Zoo. We moved to the government. This surplus revenue, whichever they available with the Mysore Zoo and Bannerghatta Zoo, must be shared with the other zoos also. And the government readily agreed and issued a government GO that any surplus revenue generated anywhere, either in Mysore or Bannerghatta, must be shared with the other small zoos like mini zoos and small zoos. This be Mysore Zoo and Bannerghatta Zoo started adopting the other zoos, like people are adopting the animals. And I said, why not actually you are getting a lot of money. Why don't you adopt the small zoos like in Gulbarga and everything? Thereby, actually, the Mysore Zoo adopted this Gadag Zoo. Now, Gadag Zoo has come up very well, but you must also factor in some of the areas where in the North Karnataka, Hyderabad, Karnataka, where the people are very poor and we don't get a good number of people. But it doesn't mean that we should deprive of those people of seeing and educating this in the conservation field. And even in the years to come, there those Jews are not going to get a revenue. But it's an obligatory on the part of these Jews which are earning a surplus revenue must be taken care of those sister Jews, sister Jew concept. That is what actually our concept is there. But let us see that actually how this after this COVID days, once we start getting this our visitors back to our Mysore and Bannerghatta Jews, we definitely we are going to take up this all other Jews on the lines of Mysore Jews.
Thank you very much, sir, and all the very best to all the zoos in Karnataka. Thank you for taking the time and joining us today. I will now request Mr. Ronak Jogeshwar to for a quick steer to quickly steer a walkthrough of the competition website and the application link. We can take a 2-minute break, and if the speakers would like to take a break, that's possible right now. Thank you so much.
To access the link to Zootopia, you have to visit the AIM website, aim.gov.in. To आपको अगर कंपटीशन में पार्टिसिपेट करना है तो आपको सिंपली aim.gov.in पे जाना है. यहाँ पे आपको एक बैनर मिलेगा Zootopia 2021. You will get a banner here, Zootopia 2021. Kindly to click here and apply. Once you click here, you will have access to the various information about the challenge, criteria, participation details, and all the relevant files and documents. जब यहाँ पे आप क्लिक करेंगे आपको redirect होगा criteria, information, participant details and जो भी files आपको चाहिए इस competition में part लेने के लिए वो सब. You just have to visit and refer to the guidelines. Then after that, you can definitely download all the relevant files with respect to the competition here in the competition files. It includes all the DWG design files of the interpretation center for your kind perusal and creation of your entry. And finally, when you are ready, you can click on apply now. सबसे पहले आप guidelines पढ़ सकते हैं. Guidelines को पढ़ने के बाद आप competition files की folder को download कर सकते हैं यहाँ पे क्लिक करने से, जिसमें आपके वेरियस डिजाइन फाइल्स है, DWF, DWG फाइल्स है और जू इंटरप्रिटेशन सेंटर के डिजाइन फाइल्स है. फाइनली जब आपका एंट्री रेडी होगा आपको सिर्फ सिंपली अप्लाई नाउ पे क्लिक करना है. When you click on apply now, you will be redirected to the competition portal. जब आप अप्लाई नाउ पर क्लिक करेंगे तब आप एक लॉगिन पोर्टल पे चले जाएंगे. यहाँ पे आप अपना सिर्फ ईमेल आईडी, पासवर्ड और कैप्चा कोड डालने के बाद आप यहाँ पे रजिस्टर कर सकते हैं और अपनी एंट्री को सबमिट कर सकते हैं. Once you have entered your email, password and the captcha code, you just have to submit your entries with the relevant information of yours and your team. Please note that this is a team-based competition and the team size should be at least 3 to 5 people, minimum 3 and maximum 5, which is also mentioned in the guidelines. Thank you so much. Over to you.
Thank you so much. And with this, we come to the end of the session. Thank you all very much for joining us, for all the insights provided during the talks, and Mr. Jogeshwar for steering the walkthrough. We've come to an end of the session, and we're hoping that you can all join us on Saturday for our next webinar. Thank you all very much and have a very good evening.
Thank you.